We are the hub for news, results, and CEO interviews focusing the junior commodities sector. We provide market analysis and perspective that will help position you for solid returns.
Happy Friday, everyone. We're joined today on Stock Talk with Peter Kent. This is a real treat, a real pleasure. I think some of you will recognize Peter right off the bat and think, wait, what are we going to be talking about here today? International journalist, reporter, producer at CTV, CBC, NBC Global for about 4 decades. Also, of course, elected to Canadian Parliament in 2008 and served till, I think, 2021. Department of Foreign Affairs, Minister of State for the Americas, Minister of the Environment, you name it. But currently, along with all of that, a small hiatus of retirement for maybe a few weeks or months, and then president of First Phosphate and director over at First Phosphate. How are you doing, Mr. Kent?
I'm fine, and Peter, please, and Peter. It's great to be with you today.
Well, it's a real pleasure. I mean, it's a great chance to chat about a lot of different things, but we're going to try to keep our focus right on what drew you to. I mean, you've obviously got the background. I mean, the natural resource. You've got all the foreign affairs. I think you can clearly see what's happening in the markets in the world today, but phosphate, why phosphate in particular? What drew you to that? And just tell us kind of what you see today generally in the market for, what phosphate does, what it is, and just kind of let us know what your thoughts are and why you were drawn to this.
Sure. Well, phosphate's tremendously important in a number of ways. 85% of the annual production of phosphate goes to agriculture, the agriculture industry, fertilizer, different forms. The rest of the phosphorus or the phosphate market goes to a variety of in more purified form to a variety of other products, including cosmetics, food products, soft drinks have phosphoric acid in it to give it a bit of a zing. But increasingly, phosphate is an important part of future energy storage. And energy storage in all of its forms, in electric vehicle batteries, in industrial, in commercial, in residential applications, is going to feature, I'm absolutely sure, significantly right across our economy, across the markets, of course, in the decades ahead. So First Phosphate is a company which is and will be the only phosphate battery materials company trading on any exchange internationally that is focused exclusively on the LFP battery sector. And little appreciated here in Canada is that in Canada we have igneous phosphate. Most of the world's phosphate is of a sedimentary nature, and the waste products or the side products include toxics, deleterious elements like cadmium, like uranium, so that the waste ponds of the production of that phosphate material is highly toxic, whether it's in gypsum, radioactive gypsum, which of course couldn't be used in building materials, it ends up in slag heaps, or in toxic ponds of the sorts that we see in Bone Valley and in central Florida. So what we have in Canada in the igneous, the hard rock phosphate, anorthosite rock, is a highly pure phosphate. It comes along with a variety of other minerals. In the case of the deposits that we control, ilmenite, titanium, and iron. So there are beneficial side products and only trace elements of any of the so-called deleterious minerals. So we think that going forward, given that the only major hard rock phosphate producer or source area in the world is in the Kola Peninsula of Russia, and given that material is now inhibited by sanctions in different forms, North America and Europe is going to be looking for the products that we can produce here in Canada, and by First Phosphate in the Saguenay region of Quebec.
I mean, it's so critical too, because it is this high grade phosphate. I mean, I could be wrong here, but it's like only 1% of the found phosphate in the world is this type. So it is very specific, and blessed to have it in a Quebec region, which is very mining friendly. Not only are they mining friendly, they're extremely cognizant for years now of this energy transition and working with companies actively. I've been kind of hooting and hollering that hopefully the federal government follows them as well, which they're starting to do. So you've got a great land package. It's huge as well. It's massive.
1,500 square kilometers.
Yes, it's huge, and you've done a lot of work up to date as well. And I have to preface this by saying this hasn't even IPO'd yet. So this is a company that's being put together, and that there's still an opportunity to as well. We'll get to that near the end of the talk, but we're lucky in a sense that we've talked to a neighbor of yours, Iron Phosphate. Yes. We've had Brian on quite a few times, and he would speak about the fertilizer world, and we saw the news headlines we're seeing about just fertilizer, and we were lucky for him to also explain that this side of phosphate and the lithium iron batteries for electric vehicles. And like you said, what's so exciting about this is the specific honing in on shovel ready, excellent infrastructure, all these things ready to go for specifically the battery energy story. That I think is going to capture a lot of attention.
Well, absolutely, and situated in the Saguenay, there are a number of exceptional benefits. First, we're very close to the main distribution lines of Hydro-Quebec, which will allow us to be green in terms of our energy sourcing. Secondly, we're in a very short driving distance by heavy-duty roads and paved roads to the deep water port of Saguenay itself. And with the port of Saguenay, we've agreed on an MOU for space there for the transfer of phosphate concentrate that will come from the crushing area somewhere close to the first mine, as well as putting aside space for future refinery development for the greater purification of the phosphate concentrate to higher levels. There's a great labor opportunity there. First Nations, the Mashtayash drilling company will be doing our future core drillings. And as you said, Quebec is a very mining friendly province, jurisdiction. Premier Legault during the recent election visited and committed $117 million in new infrastructure funding for the port itself. And it seems to us, and again, without any insider information, that we are only one of a number of companies that are going to be looking to establish in the port of Saguenay, simply because of other major ports in Quebec are already to capacity.
Yes. I mean, having you on the board of the company, but also president of the company, and having been a minister of environment, this is a big hurrah, it should be a signal to people, because you're going to come in with a very firm knowledge of what the government's looking at, how they want to do things, and all the expertise as to how to mitigate, how to work with them, and how to negotiate and to do things the way that Canada has been doing. We've talked a little bit before the show here about the track record of Canadian companies are outstanding. Maybe you could kind of speak to some of that, because it speaks volumes.
No, absolutely. Well, Canadian miners have long practiced corporate social responsibility in their operations in Canada, but abroad. And I had an opportunity, I had any number of opportunities as a journalist over the years, working internationally, to cross paths with Canadian mining companies, particularly in Africa, in Zambia, in Tanzania. And then as the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs for the Americas in Prime Minister Harper's government, I visited, gosh, dozens of mines in Central and South America over the several years that I was in that responsibility. And then, as you said, as the environment minister, was involved in our government's work on the NRCan side, as well as through Environment Canada, in the program that we called Responsible Resource Development, where we tried to eliminate redundant federal and provincial legislation and some of the red tape that had accumulated over the years with processes that didn't protect the environment but slowed down responsible development of the extraction processes in either deep mines or open pit mines or in the oil and gas industry.
I think having that, I mean, and it goes without saying that one of them, and this, I'm not going to say it, but a really great one with the lithium iron phosphate is that you don't need to use cobalt. And immediately when you hear anyone on someone who's picking a side, they'll go, "Oh, these batteries have cobalt in it." That we're talking about the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's terrible there. It's the kids, and it is. There's lots of bad news about that. Yeah. There's plenty of cobalt in Canada, by the way, and there are people mining, and there's plenty of great nickel companies in Canada, by the way, as well. But absolutely, this solution here with the lithium iron battery with phosphate, that's a great environmentally friendly and a great accommodation.
Well, it is, and the reality is that it's clean, it's highly efficient, and where the lithium ion battery has dominated until recently, the LFP technology was there, but it hadn't been perfected. But the difficulties with the lithium ion battery, most of which are made in China, has to do with less than excellent environmental processes in the extraction, the refining, and the processing. Secondly, the lithium ion battery has had issues with overheating and fires. We've seen those in both the expensive, the high-end electric vehicles and some of the more economical products that are coming out. And then on top of that, the LFP battery is not only safer and cleaner, but it is much less expensive than the lithium ion battery. It is safer, and it takes many more charges and recharges over its battery life. So the economics are very powerful, but also the operating realities of the battery and the life of the battery.
And that mass adoption rate to get the kind of the pricing down is invaluable as well. And being able to shift to meet the demand, because we've heard like rumors. Now you hear all sorts of rumors with Elon Musk, but there's talk of maybe a gigafactory, but people are looking. I mean, we know that for sure. Whether you take the rumors out, we just had in August, end of August, the German chancellor was here. They brought Volkswagen, they brought Mercedes, and they brought them to talk to Newfoundland to talk about hydrogen and wind farms, sure. But they were very clear. They came into Quebec and they talked about critical metals and minerals. And this is a pretty good indicator that the world is ready and wanting us to get to work.
Well, absolutely. And to your point about critical minerals, the European Union has recognized phosphate as a critical mineral. The province of Ontario has recognized phosphate and put it on the critical minerals list. The government of Canada has been a little slow, but is reviewing the critical minerals list now, and we expect that in 2023, we don't have an exact date, but we expect in 2023, phosphate will be added to the federal critical minerals list. And the province of Quebec is again reviewing what it calls its special minerals, to which phosphate has not yet been added. But we think with the accumulating evidence of its importance and the future of the LFP battery particularly, that it will be added and become a critical mineral by the Quebec definition. And we were talking about the future of the market, and while lithium ion batteries are still going to have a place in different forms and applications, the projection of the 2030 battery sector is that LFP batteries are going to occupy fully a half, if not of more of that market. And again, with a $50 billion estimated at this point market value.
Yes, huge. In fact, I just seen an article, and I believe it was in Electric, which they cover a lot of great work. And they are saying Tesla is already using cobalt-free LFP batteries in half of its new cars produced. Now, this is, I believe, back in the spring. So there we go. So we see that transition already happening. And it is because we gained some control back. And maybe you can tell me if I'm way off, because here's my belief is we've kind of operated under this not in my backyard approach to, kind of close our eyes and go, okay, we know that China's, refining and doing a lot of these things, and they're escalating their economy, and that's fine. I don't need to position why, but we kind of let them do that. And my argument is, you want it in your backyard. We want in Canada for us to do it, because then we get a say in the regulations. We can be very staunch about it, because
Absolutely.
Like you're saying, the growth here is going to be enormous. So we can do this properly, and we can do it with not only environmental stewardship, but with like that whole stakeholder, coming together, I guess you could say. So my argument is, if we can get people a bit more comfortable with, no, you want it in your backyard. Like, you want this here because we have a say then, and we also can harness the resources, and that will shape this future that Canada we already have them. We just have to get them out.
Absolutely. Well, we need to apply full ESG principles. We have to make sure that the processes are clean, that the communities nearby or adjacent to our mines are respected, and that the benefits of jobs and economic development associated with the extraction process are shared. And we also have to make sure, and particularly in terms of energy storage in the decades going ahead, we need to have sustainable and secure sources of the critical minerals that go into the mix. And this goes beyond LFP batteries and energy storage and other forms. This goes for all of the critical minerals that we will increasingly use in the technologies of the future. And one of the big boosts that we've got to what we see as a clean, green, and economically viable future is the new American Inflation Reduction Act, President Biden's IRA, which provides for secure, ethically sourced, refined, and shared critical minerals from North America free trade partners, of which Canada is a privileged and honored partner, and with other democracies around the world sharing the same free trade principles. So this in itself is going to encroach significantly on the Chinese domination of the battery market today, and I think that that shift is going to, and we see from announcements of the auto manufacturers that most of the plans that they've got for new electrical vehicle manufacturing plants, or those partnerships between the federal and provincial governments to build, and state governments to build battery plants, are based on those principles of the IRA and responsible and secure critical mineral sourcing.
I think also just to get the general public on side, because it's not hard to look at, say, like uranium. So nuclear, like you look at a power plant, you look at Chernobyl, like you see a disaster, or you see down South America with Vale, you had a disaster, and people will remember those and they stick in your mind. And you think, oh, it's a dirty business. And what we really need to show is that it can be done, clean. It can be done properly. And when it's done right, we have a chance here, especially in Canada, to show the world that we can do this to meet the expectation. It can't be done otherwise. I mean, we need to have phosphate, graphite, copper. We need to have these to make this shift. And the more that we can show and gain trust with people to say, listen, we're doing this correctly, I think that will be a big help.
Oh, no, well, absolutely. And, coming back to the two types of phosphate deposits, sedimentary phosphate, which is found in North Africa, in the Middle East, in limited areas, several places in the United States, has the unfortunate negative of the toxic waste.
Yes.
And we saw with Hurricane Ian in Florida, when the tidal surge, when the surge swept across areas in and around Bone Valley, where there were once, I think, 29 phosphate operations going. There's probably 9 or 10 today. Many of those tailings ponds, those waste ponds, were swept away and into the, across the general area, which has already been identified by the U.S. government as being related to a cancer occurrence 6 times higher than elsewhere in the state. So, yes, the clean hard rock phosphate, igneous phosphate of our Canadian deposits, first phosphates, Arianes, and there are phosphate deposits in northern Ontario, the north side of Lake Superior. This is, we hope, a future for the world and a clean future of an ethically sourced product.
And I guess I can mention here, so it's a good time. You're in partnership. You finalize that partnership with a research group at Queen's University.
Yes.
And they're working with SGS Quebec to create 3 different recovery streams, because
Yes.
You've got the phosphate, but you have titanium and iron that are associated.
No, absolutely. It's and we've brought in other advisors. First of all, coming back to Queen's University, Pierre Poufal and the Poufal group at Queen's, with whom we've created the partnership, is an international authority on phosphate and phosphate processes. And what he's doing and what his geologists are doing in the lab for us is to look specifically at the core deposits that we have shared to date, and work on improving the purification process to this specific source rock. So it's a big addition. And we've also, you mentioned Ariane phosphate, which has been had major Quebec holdings. It's a big capex operation north of our holdings in the Saguenay. We don't see Ariane as a rival, but as a collaborator in developing the technology and the sharing of information. And just in the last month, we added to our advisory board the founder and former chief executive of Ariane Phosphate, Bernard Lapointe, who brings a wealth of experience, both regional and in terms of the specific nature of the Quebec phosphate rock. Oh, there you go, the announcement. We stay in close touch with our colleagues on their properties north of us, but as I say, our focus is fully on where they have been predominantly focused on agricultural applications of their phosphate. We're firmly focused on producing phosphate for the LFP sector.
Yeah, that's what we found so interesting about this, because we're, like I said, lucky to have Brian teach us a lot about fertilizer over the last year. Yeah. So we know the project very well, very comfortable with it. And I know some of our viewers will be thinking, oh, wait a second, that's pretty interesting. The founder and CEO came on board to advise, and also to see that collaboration, that it isn't like you have to like us, not them. There's an opportunity here. A win on either side is more than likely going to be a win for both sides.
Well, and there's a finite amount of phosphate in the world today, and with the Russian market pretty much eliminated by the continuing war in Ukraine and sanctions, or increasingly limited, although they are still getting some out. Yes, the shift of importance falls on potential abilities to supply a rapidly expanding market, and we're seeing that as well on the lithium side, is that demand is going to far, and we see it reflected in market prices. Demand is going to very soon exceed the ability to produce unless we start producing.
Yes, and interesting too. Like I always bring up, there's a company down in South America that are doing direct lithium extraction, and they've got an MOU with Ford. So we're seeing car companies like getting into the business of mining, and for them, they can go fund something and go, we spend on R&D or in promotion, on advertising, tens of millions of dollars. If they could put some towards getting critical metals out of the ground that they get first shot at, that sounds like a way better expenditure of funds.
And we're exploring partnerships with a number of in a number of those areas, because yes, a secure supply, a sustainable and steady, reliable supply is very important. And when the market shift really takes off, that supply demand is going to be very important. And you see, with regards to phosphate, looking up at the wall here, it was $120 a ton in 2021. It was $160 a ton in March of this year. And last month it was $320 a ton. So
yeah.
The market potential, and who knows? I'm not a forecaster, but it would seem that that trend line is going to only increase.
Especially when you've got the rare type of stuff, when you've got the high grade, and it's not everywhere. And I mean, we're happy to forward that information to people. And I guess to wrap it up, one of the main reasons we're here is because someone's going to say, "Wait, I can't find you right now. You're not on the exchange. Why can't I buy you?" But that's why we wanted to have you on.
Well, absolutely. We are a public company, and we expect to file our 43101 for the Lac à l'Orignal deposit, the Moose Lake deposit, which is our flagship greenfield deposit, about 125 kilometers north of Saguenay. Very shortly, it's filed with the CSE, and we expect to be listed in early in the new year. We've been building First Phosphate really quickly during the worst market of 2022. You know that. And
yeah,
all of our management and board, and we have grown our advisory board, take very small salaries, most of it in stock. All of our funding has been directed to date at value creation. We're committed to a current round of financing, a relatively small round of financing to meet our regulatory listing requirements, but we are available to talk with folks who have a long-term hold mentality. We're looking to build this company responsibly, and we want to, when we hit the market, when we have that listing, we want to be in place to forge ahead with our infill drilling in Lac Orignal, with our new drilling in a particularly good-looking deposit area in Bégin-La-Marche, which is a little closer to Saguenay, and so anyone wanting to get further information about possible investment now, or when we do go public, financing at First Phosphate, or send a note to me, Peter at First Phosphate, and I'll send it on to our CEO, and John Pasalacqua, who is our CEO, 35 years as a capital markets exec. He's been a trader. He's been a market maker on the Toronto Stock Exchange. He would be glad to talk details.
For sure, you would.
with any investors. Absolutely.
Yes. So we'll make sure we have those in the description to reach out. And as well, if for some reason you know me personally, I'll forward you on to Peter or John as well. This is long, like it's like everything that we do over here. It's long term. It was with a long term goal in mind. They've got their milestones. They've got an investor deck which spells out what they're going to do and the amount of things they've done up till now. I mean, it really in a terrible market, you guys have put together a lot of work very quickly. And I think speed is also, it's important to say, because the world is acting very quickly. They want all this right now. And mining isn't typically the fastest thing on the planet. And you are moving very quickly.
Well, we are. And yeah, you're exactly right. Momentum is important. And we hope that our federal and provincial governments recognize that in terms of some of the timings. And, you know, environmental impact statements from firsthand experience, I know, terribly important, but sometimes the bureaucracy and processing applications with the various government departments who legitimately have a concern to make sure that everything is done to the letter of the law. Sometimes there are ways of making sure that files don't sit on desks untended for unnecessarily long periods of time. So we're hoping that Canadian governments see the horizon, the potential opportunity here, and work to make it possible for Canada to take a significant part in that future.
Excellent. Well, Peter, thank you so much. I could keep talking for hours, but we'll spare everybody else. It's been a real pleasure because I mean, you bring so much, information over decades of both journalism, but also government, and specifically these areas. It's a wealth of resource that the company has in you. So we're really excited because this gives a company a real head start as to how to navigate these challenging times and to do this correctly, like you're saying. That's what's so important. So I really appreciate you jumping on the stream, and look forward to catching up with you as soon as there's any information.
All right, thank you very much, Andrew. It's been great chatting to you, and for your viewers, visit our website firstphosphate.com. It's got all the information, and we administer. There's new information almost every day as we try to manage that momentum that we were talking about.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of the day and the weekend.
And you, all the best. Thanks.
Bye-bye.